Families can be driven apart for all manner of reasons.
I had no information at all about where my mum went.
And when you do lose touch with your loved ones,
you don't know who you are, where have you come from.
Finding them can take a lifetime.
I might have a brother that's still living here.
Especially when they could be anywhere, at home or abroad. And that's where the Family Finders come in. From international organisations...
Hi, it's the Salvation Army Family Tracing Service.
...to genealogy detective agencies.
For someone to say that it's changed their life, it makes coming to work, you know, really, really special.
And dedicated one-man bands.
It's a matter of how much effort you really want to put into it, how badly you want to solve the problem.
They hunt through history to bring families back together again.
Finding new family is wonderful.
In this series, we follow the work of the Family Finders.
Suddenly you get that one spark of breakthrough, and there they are.
Learning the tricks they use to track missing relatives through time.
I didn't think I'd ever find sisters, but I have.
And meeting the people whose lives they change along the way.
I've been waiting to meet John my whole life.
Since we've met, I feel part of a family again.
You just completed my life for me.
Many family secrets are shrouded in the mists of time. Tracing a family separated across decades or even centuries can seem a daunting task. But in fact, technological advances in fields such as computing and applied genetics have led to the development of brand new weapons in the amateur family finders' arsenal. These new techniques can help pierce the gloom and piece families back together. Today, we meet David, whose search for his birth family was floundering until he sought out the very latest online resources.
It took me a while to realise that that's the people. That's the people I was looking for.
There he is, my new brother.
And we follow the story of Sally, who used cutting-edge DNA techniques to decipher her family's 80-year-old enigma.
It told you the countries of origin that you came from, but it also matched you online to other people who had the same DNA. And he said to me, I've never had a match this close before.
55-year-old David Stewart grew up in Scotland, along with two older sisters and his brother Michael. When he was still a young boy, and for reasons David never knew, his older brother Michael was placed in care.
I was really young at the time when he went. I was only 3, something like that. In fact, I don't even remember him going. I don't remember one day he was there, next day he was gone. I was so young. So I didn't know where he went and why he went. No idea.
But that wasn't the only family mystery surrounding David's childhood. He later discovered that his mother and older sisters weren't in fact his family by birth. His dad was his real birth father and had brought David and his brother to live with him and his new family.
I think maybe about 10, 11, something like that, I started to question, you know, in myself, I started to question that there was something just wasn't right. I was never told anything about my birth mother or whatever happened to her. I had no knowledge whatsoever. A very strange upbringing when you're living with, you know, one lady who you call mum and 2 girls who you call your sisters. But in the back of your head, you know, there's something different there, there's something. And each year that went on, I just got more intrigued by it, but my dad still never told me anything. You know, it was just always something, you know, inside me that was telling me there was different things going on.
The unsettling revelations of his childhood kindled a yearning in David to find out more about his birth family that grew stronger with age. But his dad never spoke about David's birth mother or brother. So after he left home, David wrote to his paternal grandmother, who he had met on a few occasions growing up.
I wrote her just a little letter explaining who I was and, you know, did you remember me? I came and visited you a few years previous. So I was just trying to start the ball rolling and get some info. And she just wrote back and said she doesn't write letters. She doesn't, that was it. She doesn't write letters and don't write to me again. So that was the end of that.
Life carried on for David. His father died in 1985. David married and started a family of his own. But the urge to find out what happened to his older brother Michael and the desire to find out about his own birth relatives kept on growing.
I think everybody I know has got blood relatives, and I didn't have any. I just It's always been a thing in I have to have some blood relatives.
So David decided to start by looking for the only blood relative he knew he had left, his older brother Michael. He had last seen him as a young boy over 40 years earlier.
We went through the museum at Preston. Somebody had mentioned this microfiche thing, and I thought I'd give that a bash. And we pretty much had the very basic details, but we were able to get enough to give to the Salvation Army.
David's case was taken on by the Salvation Army's family tracing unit. Within just a few months, they had found a possible match. The next stage was to get in touch.
They wrote him a little letter. Would he be willing to get in touch with me? They basically gave him my name and address, a phone number, and they left it up to him.
After the years of yearning to find his own family, all David could do now was wait and see if his brother would get in touch.
He rang me on Christmas Day, about 10 years ago. And I went and visited him. I went to see him pretty soon afterwards, and he lived way up at the very top of Scotland. So that was amazing. It didn't turn out how I wanted to do it, because I wanted to have a relationship with him, even if it was long distant. But he had his life and he'd lived all that. He must have been, you know, well, at 45, 47, something. So he'd lived his life without me in it. So it's difficult, but by that time I had my wife and my children then, so I had other things to focus on.
Although the brothers reunited briefly, they have since lost touch. But finding his brother now spurred David on to try and find any other family he had out there. However, all he had to go on was a few vaguely remembered tales about his father, a previous marriage, and possibly other children.
I just had just little things in the back of my head. I've always said to my wife, and I've always said to my friends, oh, I've got 3 or 4 brothers out there, and my dad was a rum. He was married 2 or 3 times, so, you know, he did have children. So, but I don't know where I got that from. I just knew. I just knew there was somebody out there, but I didn't have the full information. I decided to have another bash. I tried the same avenues that I tried previously. I rang the Salvation Army, but they just said, you don't have enough information yet. So they told me to go on a genealogy website, which I did.
It was then that David turned to the internet for help. In the decades since David had first developed a desire to discover the truth about his family, there had been an explosion of genealogical websites available online that could offer help. They were now his only hope.
Getting this random phone call out of the blue and the person at the other end saying, I'm your brother, it's amazing. It's just amazing.
People can turn Family Finder for all sorts of reasons. In the case of Sally James, it was a desire to give her mother the closure she craved about her unknown origins.
I grew up in a suburb just outside of London. It was myself, my mother, my brother. But because my mother was an orphan, she didn't know her parents, we didn't really have any other family.
Her mother Phyllis was born in Ireland in 1937, but was placed into care as a baby.
All Mother knew about her childhood was that she was born in the Bethany home because that was on her birth certificate, and she grew up in Curwen House Orphanage.
The Bethany home was a mother and baby home in Dublin. Homes like these would often house women having babies out of wedlock during the later stages of pregnancy and birth. After being born at the Bethany home, at the age of 2, Phyllis was sent to an orphanage where she spent the rest of her childhood.
It was quite a tough time for her. The children, they were never given enough food, so they used to steal the apples from the orchard. And then if they got caught, they would get a beating, and she often did.
At the age of 16, Phyllis left the orphanage, moved to England to train as a nurse, and eventually started her own family. But she never stopped wondering about her birth mother. Unfortunately, Phyllis had hardly any information, apart from what was on her birth certificate.
The only thing that she knew was that her mother was called Margaret Little, which was her maiden name, and there was no father's name on the birth certificate. And in those days, you didn't ask questions. Everything was kept hidden.
Sally took up the challenge to find out the truth about her mother's family, but time was running out.
It was extremely important for me to try and find out from my mother, particularly in the last few years, because as her health deteriorated, I knew that probably there wasn't time on our side, and she'd wanted to know all her life who her mother was. She longed to know who her mother was.
The first port of call for Sally was online.
I looked at genealogy websites and I was searching for a birth, death and marriage certificate for her mother, who was Margaret Little, but I couldn't find anything.
Trying a different approach, over the next few years, Sally got in touch with several charities who helped children who grew up in care to trace their families. And finally, she got a result.
So one thing the charity were able to give me was a copy of my mother's orphan certificate when she was in Kirwan House. On the back of the orphan certificate, there was a very sad note written. It says, "This is a very needy child. The mother now is married, but living in very poor circumstances, and it would be the most undesirable place for this child." So it explains why she gave my mother up, although it's not the full story, obviously.
The certificate also showed that by the time Phyllis was placed in the orphanage, her mother Margaret had married a man named James Clancy. But despite all this new information, it didn't lead to the breakthrough Sally so desperately wanted.
Even though I knew from one of the charities that she'd married a James Clancy, I still couldn't find, and nobody else could find, a wedding certificate, which seemed most odd, because you'd think that was the one thing you could find. But in fact, it was impossible.
Undeterred, Sally kept looking, but when a few years later her mother's health deteriorated, the search became all the more critical.
She was diagnosed in the summer with lung cancer, and it suddenly hit me that, you know, time was not on her side. In fact, it wasn't on my side either, because, you know, I now had a desperate search to try and find who her mother was. Even though I had bits of information all over the place, I just didn't have the things I needed the most, which were her mother's date of birth and the place she was born. And I said to her one day, "Mum," I said, "I will keep looking as long as I live, and even after you're gone, I will still be searching, you know, until the day I die." And I knew that meant something to her. That meant a lot to her.
Another 2 years went by. Phyllis's health was deteriorating, and she was now living in a nursing home. It was then that Sally decided to take a gamble on some new cutting-edge family-finding technology: DNA testing.
It told you the countries of origin that you came from, but it also matched you online to other people who had the same DNA. And I thought, if only we could find a connection, it might lead somewhere. So I thought, now's the time to get the kit, get the test done, and see what happens. So she did the test for me. I sent it off.
Advances in the science of genetics have opened up a whole new branch of genealogical research that didn't exist up until a few years ago.
DNA is a great way to kickstart your family history, right? Because it gives you something to build on. You provide a DNA sample, it's a bit of a swab or a spit, and you send it off and they process it in the lab. And what they do is they pull out, you know, hundreds of thousands of markers. What they're able to do is determine your ethnicity, so have a bit of an understanding of where your ancestors might have come from in the past. And of course, the other thing that it does, it will say, "Oh, okay, well, you've got these markers, this other person has got these markers, therefore we're pretty confident you're second cousins." Now, if you have no idea who that person is, suddenly a branch of your tree that you thought might have been dead suddenly comes to life.
Sally decided to take a DNA test in the hope of speeding up her search for her mother's family. After a quest that had lasted years, little did she know just how quickly she would get an answer, and that it would lead to a totally unexpected discovery.
All these years, all these searches, and there she was, and there I'd found the family.
Welcome.
In Scotland, David Stewart had also turned to technology for help in his search. David had always yearned for blood siblings of his own. He was chasing down a family rumour that his father had had other children before him.
People were telling me that I've got 3 brothers and a sister out there.
David took his search online, where he found a wealth of genealogical resources. He even made contact with online amateur family finders willing to take up the search.
The community on that website take it on themselves to help, so within hours of putting my very basic details on, a message popped up from a lady that I didn't know, and she was able to tell me that I had 3 half-brothers and a sister, and within hours of joining the site, she was able to give me an address of one of my brothers. As soon as I got that address, I decided I'd ring him there and then if I could find a phone number for him, but there wasn't any phone number. I couldn't find a number, so I wrote my letter pretty much straight away.
The genealogist online had found David's half-brother called Stephen. It seemed the rumours had been true. His father had had other children before David was born. He had finally found the family he'd spent years looking for. But when it came to making contact, David was gripped by nerves.
When I posted the letter, I felt, I don't know, just apprehension. I was really apprehensive if he got the letter and just thought, oh, you know, maybe bin it or maybe not be interested, so that'd be another one that... So I was scared, but I was also excited.
50 miles away, that letter landed in Stephen Stewart's hands.
There was one letter on the table for me. Got the letter and opened it. And then there was this, "Dear Sir," which I thought was quite quaint. "My name is Dave Stewart. My father's name is Roy Douglas Stewart. I think you may be my long-lost half-brother. I have no other blood family, and I'll be very interested if you'd let me know." So I gave him a ring.
I think it was Christmas Eve, actually, and we were just doing my thing, getting ready for Christmas, and my phone rang. I answered it this day, and the man on the other end just said it was my brother. And he confirmed the letter that he received. And he just said, "Hello, Dave, I think I'm your brother." After looking for so many years and then just getting this random phone call out of the blue and the person at the other end saying I'm your brother, it's, wow, it's amazing. It's just amazing.
Stephen is one of 4 children, all from David's father's first marriage.
I was born in 1948 in Ipswich, the eldest of 4 children. I can't really remember exactly when he left. He was there, he wasn't there. I was aware only via the effect you have at school, because I wasn't a particularly nice little kid. I was always fighting, getting into troubles and scraps, and it always used to really irritate me in the background where they'd say I've been in this trouble because I come from divorced parents, and that used to really irritate me at that particular stage. Occasionally, one of my aunties used to say to me, "Your dad's in town. Your dad's down at the Cricketers, a local pub where my grandmother used to live." And I would go down there and I might get a Vimto and a bag of crisps or something, you know. I was on the lookout for something when you live in that sort of situation. And I would sometimes see him, but then that sort of stopped altogether.
But before he lost contact with his father, there is one particular meeting that has always stuck in Stephen's mind.
I can remember coming out of school one day. I remember this big car come out, and I walked past, and my dad came out of the car, and he introduced me to these 2 little boys, Michael and David. And I can't remember which was which, or which was the biggest one, and they got out, you know, what do you say as a young child to 2 other kids, you know. And so I never said much. I was just hoping he might give me 10 bob or something, you know. And then disappeared, never saw them or heard of them again. Occasionally my father would turn up in Ipswich and take me out, drive to Felixstowe, buy me an ice cream, give me 10 bob or 5 bob, and then disappear. And that was it, really. And that was all I had of him for years. On my 16th birthday, I joined the army and left home with a toothbrush and a flannel wrapped up in my bag and a spare pair of underpants. And that's all I took with me. I thought it was great. 3 square meals a day, you know, cooked breakfast every day, dinner, lunch, everything was great. I loved the army, I thought it was great.
Once Stephen left the army, he married, had 2 daughters and moved to Scotland.
I hadn't thought of my father or got involved with anything about him for ages. But I then got a call off my sister saying she's got my dad's address and he was in Scotland. And we drove down one day, Ruth, myself, and my eldest daughter, Claire. I sat outside there for 2 or 3 hours, and I couldn't get myself to go in because I didn't really know what I was going to get into. I didn't really know if he wasn't bothered with me. I didn't didn't know if he was going to be good, bad, you know. So Ruth was really onto me. Just go up and speak to him. Just go knock on the door, just speak to him. I just couldn't bring myself to it. I was just sort of sceptical about it. I thought, well, all these years he's not bothered. Why should I bother? And that's how I felt about it at that time. We'd had our first child, Claire had been born, and I was absolutely besotted with with the girls when they were born. They were fantastic. Best things in my life, the 2 daughters, you know. So I thought, well, why couldn't he care like I care for my kids? So I wasn't that interested I lost interest in seeing him, really. We just drove back home to Glasgow, and didn't do anything about it.
But that wasn't the end of the story. A number of years later, Stephen's urge to find his family returned. And just as David was looking for him, Stephen was trying to find his half-brothers.
I'd always known the background that they were there, Michael and David were there, but I didn't know anything about them. I didn't know what they'd done. When I put their names into the search machine, nothing came up for them because I never had any other details about it. I didn't know what, I roughly worked out what age they would be or what year, but I couldn't get that stage further. And so I just thought, nothing there for me, I didn't think. So I just sort of gave up hope at that particular point and just sort of got on with my life.
That was until the day, just a few months ago, when David's letter landed in Stephen's hands.
He's got a virtual carbon copy of my family. He's got his wife and 2 daughters, and I've got a wife and 2 daughters. I'm looking forward to meeting him.
After several weeks speaking on the phone and several years unknowingly living just 50 miles apart, today the 2 brothers have arranged to meet up for the first time since their dad introduced them as young boys.
You can't explain this feeling. There's not many people go through this, I don't think. It's worse than a first date. When you just and you're dead nervous and you're meeting somebody, you want to make a good impression. I'm not trying to impress or anything. I'm just trying to, I'm just going to meet my brother, and it's like it's meeting a girlfriend for the first time. It's a really strange feeling.
I'm looking forward to it, really. A little bit apprehensive, but absolutely fine. Looking forward to meeting him, really. I've had a couple of conversations with him on the telephone, and really looking forward to meeting him and his wife.
Well, I feel really nervous, and I don't know why I should feel so nervous. I do. Really emotional.
I'm really pleased that he's contacted us. I think that's really nice. I just think the whole thing that he's bothered, is really nice.
Oh, I'm too nervous. I don't want to eat or drink.
After decades of searching for family, David is about to come face to face with his brand new brother for the very first time.
There he is.
My brother at last.
My new brother.
Hi, guys.
How are you? You're right. Yeah. It's really nice to see you, mate. It really is. Really pleased. You're all right.
Yeah, I'm good. Hi, Ruth. Are you all right?
Yes, I'm fine, thank you.
This is hard.
Hey, I'm Tracy.
Hi.
Nice to see you.
Yeah.
My new sister-in-law.
Yeah. Hi.
Oh. Sit down, mate.
Oh, yeah, good to see you, mate. I'm really pleased to see you in the flesh now.
Yeah, I am. I can't tell you. This is phenomenal for me. It really is. I've been trying this for years and years, and we were talking about it yesterday.
How stupid that we're so close. So close.
I know, yeah. It's not taking us 30 miles to come here.
That's amazing, isn't it?
I know. It really is.
And you would never have found me. You didn't have
I didn't.
How would you start?
I found my dad lots of times, no problem. On various lists I found him where he lived at particular times, but there was I couldn't get any further to find if he had any children. I knew he had 2 children. I knew a minimum of 2, and I assumed he might have had a couple more.
Probably did.
So I never sort of thought much about that. So, and every time I just seemed to get stuck.
The 2 brothers had very different childhoods, and both have brought some memorabilia to share.
We've brought a few pictures. We've got only one of Were Father.
Oh, wow, look at that. Wow.
Oh, God, yeah.
Jenny always says, isn't he handsome, isn't he handsome?
Yeah.
See, I don't see a resemblance there, do you? For you?
No.
But I do for me.
I'm on my mother's side, yeah.
I used to sneak into my dad's bedroom, and I used to bring this out and look at these little old photos of him.
We had a load of army photographs. We had a load of pictures, yeah.
That's what these are.
But my mother burned them all.
Oh, God. Well, that's the earliest one, I think, I've got of that. And it looks like...
It looks really young,
what, 14, 15, something like that, I'd have thought. But that's all I've got of my dad. That and that ring.
Really?
He was the same initials, Andy.
Oh, yes, yeah.
Roy
yeah.
David Stewart, Roy Douglas Stewart.
Yeah.
It was the exact same. So that's all I've got. That.
Well, I've got nothing. I've got nothing at all because he just sort of suddenly disappeared. You know, he was there and he was gone.
It's taken David years to find a brother to call his own. But as the two reunited siblings compare notes, they realise there were several near misses. Not least Stephen's visit to his dad in Scotland, where he couldn't bring himself to knock on the door.
I can't believe, why didn't you come through the door, man?
I couldn't.
God, I could have met you.
I know, but then I think that would have been completely different then, because at that particular stage in your life, I don't know, you know, if, what, you're 10 years younger than me, 11 years younger than me?
Yeah.
Well, bloody kids.
Even then I knew,
Did you really?
Yeah. I must have found this when I was really, really small. This here is 3 letters from the courts saying that you've got to pay maintenance for the...
No, really?
Yeah, no, to be honest, I'd forgotten all about them up until a couple of weeks ago when we were talking.
Yeah.
And all your names and your date of births and everything's on there.
Really?
So if I'd have found that 20, 30 years ago, I must have not, you know, yeah.
I know there's a big thing in our house about not getting any money from my father, I remember.
Well, if you look at them, that's exactly what they say. But again, I should have looked at, I don't know why.
Yeah, no.
All your dates of birth and all your names are on one of these. I looked at the pictures probably, but really didn't take these in. When you try as hard as I've done over the years to find blood relatives, or to find people I could call my own, you get expectations, and I've, you know, been rejected a few times over the years. So I didn't know what to expect really, but now that I've met him and now that I've shook his hand, it's just, I'm very happy. I'm really happy how it's went. He's very easygoing. You know, it couldn't have been better, really.
Really nice, really nice. He's a nice guy. He's an easy guy to talk to, and I'm really looking forward to sort of meeting the family and doing other stuff with him.
Oh, that's been amazing.
Yeah.
It's been amazing.
Lovely to meet you.
Nice to see you.
Hope to see you again.
We'll see you soon.
Yeah.
All right, brother.
Okay.
Nice to meet you, mate.
Take care.
Fantastic.
And we'll work someone out to see you again.
Yeah,
All right.
soon. The future's looking good now, really. I mean, not that it wasn't, you know, I've got a great family, and my own children and all my Scottish family. But it's just, it completes it now, doesn't it?
In Sussex, Sally James had been searching for her grandmother, Margaret Little, on behalf of her mum Phyllis. After hitting a dead end with traditional tracing techniques, Sally had decided to use the latest DNA technology. She added her results to an online database. It wasn't long before she got a match.
Within 3 weeks, I had the results back, which were amazing. And the next thing I knew, I had 3 emails ping in my email box, 2 from the same person, a guy called Matthew.
On the other side of the Irish Sea, Matthew Stewart had also been researching his family history. He has also added his DNA to the online database.
I was aware of DNA testing for a few years before it was available here in the UK. I thought it'd be quite interesting to try it, to see. I didn't think it would lead to any big breakthroughs at all. I never imagined that it would lead to breakthroughs. The email came through saying you had a new match on your DNA matches list. Because it was so close, it was like a suggested second cousin match, and I know most of my second cousins. I decided I'd better email quite quickly, so I sent an email off through that website.
Through the DNA test, Sally and Matthew knew they were related. Now they just had to work out how. Sally logged on to look at Matthew's family tree to see if she could find any trace of her grandmother, Margaret Little.
So I quickly looked at his family tree. One of the people, they were called Mary May Little, and she had married a Joe Armstrong. So I looked at their children that they had, and lo and behold, there was a Margaret on there. So I clicked on her profile, and my God, I couldn't believe it. There she was. Margaret Armstrong had married a James Clancy. And it was then that the penny dropped, because I realised that she'd lied about her name all this time.
Sally now knew why she hadn't been able to find her grandmother Margaret. The name she had given on the birth certificate of the daughter she gave up was Margaret Little. Her real name was Margaret Armstrong. It's likely she used her mother's maiden name because of the stigma of having a baby born out of wedlock at that time.
I sent Matthew back an email. I said to him, I'm in a state of shock. You'll never guess what's happened. I've just looked at the photograph of Margaret Armstrong and discover it's my grandmother.
They were soon on the phone to each other and quickly ascertained that they shared great-grandparents. But Matthew had some even bigger news.
He said, right, OK, so are you sitting down? I've got some other things to tell you. And I was actually shaking. My mouth was dry, I was shaking.
By this stage, she was very shocked as well, because she had, as I know now, she had tried for years to discover who her mother's family was. And no matter what avenue she went down, she constantly hit brick walls, one after the other.
So he said, your mother has got 3 brothers still alive and an aunt in Australia of 92. I said, what? He said, yeah. And, you know, this isn't the first time that Peggy has done this, because your mother's got a brother called Jim, and he was also born out of wedlock the year after her, and we only found him last year. So I was absolutely amazed, gobsmacked. All these years, all these searches, and there she was, and there I'd found the family. I just wanted to shout from the rooftops. You know, the first thing I wanted to do was tell Mother, Mother, I found your family. When I told Mother, she couldn't believe it. She was astounded. She said, I've got brothers? I've got brothers? I said, yeah, you've got 3 brothers and an aunt in Australia, and they're all still alive. She couldn't believe it. She just couldn't believe it. You know, it was amazing.
The next member of her newfound family to make contact was Phyllis's brother and Sally's uncle, Jim.
And he said to me, he said, I understand I have a sister called Phyllis. Can I speak to Phyllis? And I said, well, Jim, she's actually in a nursing home, you know. Oh, I've got a sister. When can I speak to her? When can I speak to her? He was so excited. He was beside himself.
Sally discovered that her new Uncle Jim was born in Dublin to Margaret in 1938. A year younger than Phyllis, he too was given away as a baby.
There was no such thing as fostering in Ireland at that time. So my father and mother put me with this family when I was 3 months old. And I couldn't ask for more love than you get from your real mother and father.
Nobody ever knew about Jim. She'd had 2 illegitimate births and kept them secret from her entire family.
It wasn't until over 70 years later, when Matthew was researching the family tree and found him, that Jim was reunited with his birth family.
That's how the ball started rolling. I discovered I had all these relations. I had 2 brothers, and I didn't find out about Phyllis, my sister, in Sussex for a few months after that. So it was thrilling. Absolutely thrilling.
Shortly afterwards, Jim flew to England to meet his sister Phyllis.
By this time, Mother her mobility had more or less gone, and she was in a wheelchair. So, and the cancer was getting progressively worse. It was a touchy moment, and we had a lovely lunch together.
We spoke about everything, really. Her life, Sally's life, my life. She was over the moon when I told her about the family that looked after me, because I was the only one.
It was phenomenal, I can't tell you. Phenomenal, you know. To think that she had a brother still alive who could meet her, and she was still alive, you know. Wow.
I was trying to hold back the tears, and it wasn't easy. Even talking about it now upsets me, you know. What a lovely woman. I feel special to know them all, because they're all brilliant. I'm over the moon, of course. That's how I feel about it. Yeah. The only thing I regret is we didn't do it earlier.
Sally had fulfilled her mission. Just 4 months later, her mother died. But before she did, Phyllis got to hear all about her birth family and even met Jim, her newly discovered brother. But that's not the end of Sally's journey. Today, she's heading to Dublin as her research had thrown up another exciting lead. But first, she's meeting her mum's brother Jim and her cousin Matthew.
I can't wait. I love them to bits already, you know. I mean, all those years apart, and we could have been a family, and we could have shared so much together. And now, you know, time's moved on, but to actually find that, you know, we want to be more of a family together is a fantastic thing for me, because I never grew up with having much of a family.
Hi. Great to see you.
Yeah, and you, yeah, great. Ah, Jim, how you doing?
Looking good.
Yeah, and
Long
you.
time no see.
Mwah. It's lovely to see you again.
It's been 8 months since their first reunion, and there's still lots of family history to catch up on.
You had no inkling that your mother had any siblings at all? You had nothing to go on?
Nothing. No. And all her life, she longed to know who her mother was. And she would have loved having a big Irish family. She was so full of life herself. And it broke my heart, Jim.
Oh, I'm sure it did.
I saw her suffer so much growing up. And that's why now I felt so
Emotional about that.
determined to find out who her mother was.
Yeah. Tell us the DNA. We have some strange relations, haven't we?
There's like 1% Melanesian, which is Papua New Guinea and Fiji.
How did they get there?
I don't know.
Oh, that's amazing.
We'll still to find those cousins and dig them out.
I couldn't imagine you in a grass skirt.
Do you not think so?
Now it's time for Sally to reveal her new information and the reason for her trip today. Through her research into her mother's childhood, Sally has found someone who grew up with Phyllis in the orphanage 70 years ago.
Looking forward to finding out more about Phyllis's childhood.
Yeah, well, Eileen, we're going to meet now. She'll be able to fill in the gaps.
Yeah.
She will, because they were a long time together in the
Well, I guess they must have grown up together.
Yeah.
Eileen remembers Sally's mother well, but lost touch with her once they left the orphanage.
Hello. Hello. Hi, Sally.
Welcome. How are you?
It's the first time Sally has ever met someone from her mum's childhood.
You're the link with the past. You're the only link I have now with the past. You have now to look to the future. And at least you had a good mum, and that's all that matters. Isn't that true?
Okay. Lovely to meet you, Matthew.
Would you like a cup of tea? No. Yeah, I'd love a cup of tea.
I have to clean my face up now.
I'm delighted to see you.
And me too.
Really am.
Oh, you know, I can't believe that I've met you. I can't. I mean, I'm astounded that I could have met someone who was in the children's in the orphanage with my mother.
Yeah.
And you were friends, weren't you?
We were very friendly. Like from the age, say, up to about 12.
So you must have got transferred about the same time from the Bethany home to Cowan House.
Yeah, I was transferred in January.
Yeah. So was she.
1940.
So was she.
Do you see?
So was she. 16th of January.
Yeah, 16th.
1940?
Yeah.
No.
Yes.
The same date?
Same date.
My God.
Yeah.
Eileen has a special surprise to show Sally. The story of one of the happier times at the orphanage.
Every year we put on this display. It's a nice photograph.
Is it?
Yeah,
Oh,
it's lovely.
that's Mother.
Yeah.
I hardly recognise her.
And there's me.
Can you remember what Mother was like growing up together, you know, when you were in the orphanage together? What personality she had?
She had a lovely personality and was very well liked. And her bed was beside mine. And I always remember she got a doll with one eye and one leg. But she was thrilled with it. She said she'd look after it, she'd nurse it.
I'm going to show you now a video of Mum and me as a baby.
Yeah.
This was taken about 1963. And that's Mum, and that's me as a baby in the red. Look at her. She was beautiful.
She's gorgeous. That's just as I know her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She would have been about 27 there.
Yeah. But she was a lovely child anyway, so.
Do you recognise her face?
I do indeed, yeah.
Did you find out that you had relations?
No.
Never?
I have been searching for 50 years.
Good Lord.
And every door in Dublin, Ireland, has been closed. I've tried everybody to help. Nobody can help me. And my daughters, God, they've gone to the end of the earth to try and help. But I don't think it's going to be somehow or other. But anyway.
May I say that you can consider us part of your family?
Thanks very much, Jen.
That's sweet, isn't
That's
it?
lovely. You'll have me crying.
I am already.
Today was a most enlightening and moving experience, particularly meeting Sally again and then Eileen, who was in the home with my sister.
It's wonderful to meet you, to think that you were in the orphanage and you were a friend of my mother. I mean, I never thought I'd find anybody, you know, that she knew. That means an awful lot.
And I'm delighted you've come. I appreciate it. I really do. It's fantastic. I'm thrilled that they've come, and somehow it has given me a great boost.
Today's been really emotional. I can't actually believe I've met somebody from my mother's past who knew her over 70 years ago, that went to school with her, grew up with her, slept in the next bed to her in the orphanage, and knew what she was like as a child. I mean, it's phenomenal, really.